From the Dallas On Air studios, this is Fulfillment here on DallasOnAir.com. And now here's your hosts, the Vegabomber and the Film Samurai.
Welcome. We're back finally. We've recovered from the Oscars, the Foscars, and all that. It has to do with how we watch films and how we rank them, whether we give them a golden trophy or not. So, Carlos, did you survive the Oscars, the Foscars?
I did survive the Oscars. Yeah, they're pretty, well, the Oscars are the Oscars. There's no surprises, really, for me. They were pretty much what I expected. I'm glad they kind of streamlined it, didn't do the bits and gags where they go across the street and pass out candy and snacks to the stars and all that.
Yeah.
That always annoyed me.
Yeah.
Her new favorite host, Absentia.
Yeah, no host. That was great.
Yeah, that was the best thing they could have done. Take a 4-hour show that really only probably needs to be an hour and 15 cents with a jawbreaker, probably something like that. So, well, welcome everyone to watching episode. This is actually episode 3 for us. So we're still getting this thing going. And so, just in case, if you're just tuning in to Fulfillment for the first time, this is the show that you want to watch if you care about films, if you want to talk about films, if you sit in the theater after the movie's over and you're still talking about the film, if you're in the parking lot of the movie theater still talking about the film when everybody else is left, when they shut off the lights and they're sweeping up the popcorn, then, and if you collect movies, as you see, we have up here and books about movies. If you do that, you probably are someone that reaches a certain place of fulfillment called fulfillment. And so we're for you. And Carlos, you've been watching films for a long time. Fulfillment, what's that? Can you describe that for us?
Fulfillment, to me, it's just like you said, when you come out of a film and it has taken you to another place and you're thinking about it and walking home. I remember as a kid, every summer we'd go down to Laredo, Texas, and there was a movie theater, and it was, movies were so cheap back then. It was probably $1, to go see a movie. And sometimes they had a double features, and you'd go see them. And I remember seeing, remember the movie Ben with the rat?
Yeah,
The Willard sequel?
Yeah, well, Willard and Ben, yeah. I think they actually double featured them.
Nice!
And I remember seeing those and being blown away by these rats, man, and these thousands of rats, and how do they train them? But now they would have made that movie. Now it's all CGI, right?
Yeah.
So, but back then, and just kind of this eerie feeling, and coming out of the movie is just like, oh my God, it's one of the best movies I ever seen as a kid, and being blown away by old Ray Harryhausen movies and things like that.
Yeah. As far as remakes go, I'm convinced that Crispin Glover is a CGI effect.
Crispin Glover, man. What a character.
The human CGI face.
He's the best thing in Charlie's Angels, right?
That's exactly right, I would say. And so for you guys watching, if this is your first time watching, we do have 3 big segments that we like to do. We did one last week and then focused mostly on the Oscars. Actually, I should say 2 weeks ago, but now we're going to come back to our normal format and programming. So the first segment we like to talk about is the picks of the week. So this is where Carlos and I attempt to try to go through the movies that are coming out either this weekend or next week, and then kind of give you a clue of or a sense of which movie might be the pick to go see. The second segment that we'll do today, coming back, will be our Just Seen It piece, where we'll talk about the movies that we've recently just seen. We'll give you all of our thoughts on that. Maybe that might help you make a decision on what to see or not to see. And then the final segment, get your mind out of the gutter ahead of time, is MILF, and that's the movies I'd like to fix, and I'll save that as a tease as to which movie we will attempt to fix. So first off, going back to the picks of the week, let's look at some of the films. And some of the films that are the picks of the weeks will be Captain Marvel, The Kid, Us, Wonder Park, Captive State, and The Mustang. And so real quickly, I'll start with the one that everybody's probably talking with, and then we'll go back and forth, and that's Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel, the latest in the installment of the MCU, this is supposed to help us understand how she fits into the end game. This is, for a bad analogy, the Wonder Woman of Marvel, although she's not, but she is the most powerful. And I see that you have Wonder Woman with you. So Captain Marvel is one of the picks this week. The other one would be a movie called Gloria Bell. So Gloria Bell, this is a Spanish film, right, Carlos? Or I'm trying to see if you remember.
Julianne Moore?
Julianne Moore. Yep,
movie,
the
right?
Julianne Moore film. Okay. This film was originally, I think, done in, I think it's a recycled film from 2013. But now what it is the director, and the director is Sebastian Leo. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name, Sebastian, wrong. And this is a film about a lonely divorcee who falls in love with a convict. So a lonely divorcee, and
John
then
Turturro.
John Turturro, right? And I think Sean Austin's in this.
Family.
Yes.
She takes him to meet the family, and she ignores him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's all hurt. Yeah, I've seen this trailer like 3 times now. Every time I go see one of these movies at the Angelica or something, art house movies, they show this trailer. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen the movie.
You've seen the movie. Yeah, we've probably seen this, and we're trying to figure out why they would do this again. But hey, there you go. And then there's another movie called The Kid, and this one is directed by D'Onofrio, which we love. And in this film,
Kingpin.
He is the Kingpin. That's right. And in this film, and it was also in
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
He's been a lot.
The Seven, Magnificent Seven, which has one of his co-stars in this as well.
Was he on one of those Law and Order also?
Mm-hmm. Law and Order as well. And so this one, he directs his good buddy Ethan Hawke, who he was also in the film with Magnificent Seven with.
Chris
and he
Pratt
also has
too.
Chris Pratt in there as the villain, and then Dave DeHaan. No, it's
Dane DeHaan.
Dave DeHaan. I always have a hard time saying that. And he's going to play Billy the Kid in this movie.
Yeah,
so a Western, but
nobody's going to see this movie.
Yeah,
people don't go see Westerns anymore.
Yeah,
it's a good movie. I actually saw it Friday.
So. You actually saw it? Okay, well, we're going to have to talk about that at some point. And then the next movie we have is a movie called Us, and I'm excited about this. This is the Jordan Peele from Key and Peele.
Good work coming out of South by Southwest.
Yes.
A lot of rave reviews, but of course that's typical with South by Southwest.
Yeah.
The stars are there, they get the crowd fired up, and they watch the movie. I'm sure it's great.
Yeah,
sure it's
I'm
pretty
best sure it is.
I hear it's his best movie since Get Out.
Wow. Because it's his only movie since Get Out, right? For those
He's
who
already been proclaimed the greatest director since Alfred Hitchcock's, the next Steven Spielberg,
the next Rod Serling,
Shyamalan, whatever.
And it's interesting because that is the genre that needed probably the most help in terms of horror films, in terms of raising the stakes and getting a little better. Because the things that he takes on. So in this movie, it stars from Black Panther, Nakia and M'Baku were together in this one. In Black Panther, Nakia was Black Panther's girlfriend. In this movie, Lupita Nyong'o's character, Nakia, is married to M'Baku, who in this movie, Winston Duke is his real name. I guess they're a family that's going to go on vacation in California and Santa Cruz to meet another family. And then there's a horror twist thriller that ensues from there. And that's called Us.
Incredible. Yeah. It looks like it's going to be pretty creepy. Pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
Disturbing imagery. And
Yeah, I'm interested in this film because anytime you can do something different to a genre, because I think this is not normally this funny, but I see some very funny elements in this thing, although it's going to scare the crap out of you at the same time. So it's kind of like having something that's sweet and salty. And this is going to be scary and funny.
And when you put kids in it, kids are always, in scary movies, they're always freaking me out.
Yeah, and I hear that there's some throwbacks. One of the articles I read on this was that Jordan Peele was kind of channeling a little bit of Jaws in it. So you see the beach scene and a couple other things. So he took
I wonder if he does that pull shot.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah. That would be really cool. So Us is coming out. That's on the 22nd, so it's not this weekend, but the weekend after that. And then there's a movie called Wonder Park, which is an animated feature. And this film, it's written by Josh Applebaum, and it's going to star the voices, if you will, of Brianna Dinsky. She's going to play June, the main character. And then there's Jennifer Garner's in it. I've written some of this down. Mila Kunis, Ken Jeong. These are some of the voices.
This is a kids movie?
Yeah, I think so. And so it's a PG-13. And so basically it's the story of a very imaginative young girl named June.
Oh, I think I've seen the
trailer. Who sees everything as a amusement park.
Yes.
So everything's an amusement park to her. And so there ensues the whole story and plot of Wonder Park. So that might be the kid-safe bet movie to go to this week. And then there's another movie that's a thriller movie in here, and it's called Captive State. So I'm also very interested in this. So this one is a Rupert Wyatt film And it stars Vera Farmiga, and it seems like Vera Farmiga does all the spooky thrillers, right? Because she was in The Conjuring, she was in that show, The Bates Motel, that was on AMC, right?
Played Norma. Great performance as Norma Bates. Yes.
And then the Houston native Machine Gun Kelly is going to be one of the actors in this film, and Kiki Lane is in this film as well. So Captive State's a thriller. I think you may have seen some.
Is it is like the alien invasion, right?
Yeah,
sort
I think
of.
that's what it's kind of what we've seen from the trailer. I think it is, but it's being done in another way. So
Okay.
I'm excited to see that. So the last movie is a movie called Mustang, and I guess it's supposed to be a film that's supposed to
The Mustang.
The
Right.
Mustang. That's right, because otherwise you might think about the car, right? Is that it?
I think there was a movie just called Mustang, but
Yeah, it was called. Well, let's see. We can take a look. That's the wonderful of the internet here. So it says here Mustang. So this is the story of a guy who's a violent convict who's given a chance to participate in some sort of change rehabilitation therapy. And then from there, we get to find out that it's the training of wild horses that is supposed to be used by the psychologist to help him rehabilitate from his convict ways. So
when I went to see the Kid on Friday, they had the trailer for this. Yeah, it looks good. It looks like an art house type movie. You know.
Yeah.
Matthias Schoenaerts, I think I told you he was in Red Sparrow. He played Jennifer Lawrence's character's uncle. He's been in some really good movies. I've seen him in other stuff before. Really good actor. And in this one, I think he's using an American accent. He's not American.
Yeah.
I think he's French, maybe. Not
Matthias?
Sure. Matthias.
Matthias, yeah. We'll have to do
Looks good.
an etymology on that name and find out what's going on. So look at this. These are our picks, and we got to come up with a pick. So here's again are the picks, right? It's between Captain Marvel, The Kid, Us, Wonder Park, Captive State, and The Mustang or Mustang. And so which would you say is your pick for?
Mine would be Us.
Be Us, yeah. Well, once again, I'm going to have to be in full agreement. I will have to say Us as well. Jordan Peele, at this point, until he does something wrong, I have to continue to go see everything that he's trying to do. So this week, ladies and gentlemen, we'll say Us is the movie. If you're doing something just for the kids, maybe Us might be too scary for them, so maybe you take them to see Wonder Park instead. But Us will be the pick.
No, break it early.
Yeah.
7 years old, perfect.
Yeah, traumatize them right away.
Exactly.
Make them hard.
And that's the Talk Lord of the
Like
Sith,
I
if you're
do.
wondering. Yep, right. Do it that way.
Mom took me to The Godfather when I was like 12 years old. So violent, man. So
Yeah.
inappropriate. But yeah, I saw it. It was
Yeah,
great.
my mom took me to The
Loved
Witches of Eastwick at like 11. I'm like, no. That whole cherry pit scene, sorry. Couldn't even begin after that.
So let's talk about let's move into our second segment today. This is the Just Seen It segment. So you've seen 2 movies since I last seen you, but
Yes.
Let's talk about Apollo 11. You saw that one originally.
Apollo 11. This is a used not found footage. It's documentary footage that NASA produced back during the Apollo 11 mission. It's film and video. Like Peter Jackson's They Shall Not Grow Old, they don't use like a narrator telling the history or what's happening, what's going on. Basically, it's just showing all the footage. The voices you hear are, the command center, the people talking, or news reporters. Walter Cronkite comes in at one point, talking about the mission. You hear in the background, news going on. And I didn't realize this, but at that time, this is when Ted Kennedy drowned Mary Jo Kopechne, and that was kind of going on at the same time. And you overhear some of the guys in the Mission Control Center just chatting about it. The footage, I guess they remastered the film and transferred it digitally. It's incredible. The color stuff, the shots, panning up the rocket, when they're moving the rocket from, I guess, where it was put together to the launch pad. There's some amazing scenes of just people on the beach, just crowds of people. And of course, this was 60s. You see men wearing shirts and ties and nice hats and everything, and the women wearing dresses and the kids all dressed up. And it was a special occasion, of course. I mean, this is a historic event.
Putting on the Ritz.
The footage of the guys, getting into their suits and the liftoff. And, you know, it's nerve-wracking watching this movie. You know what's going to happen. The mission was a success, of course. But as you watch it, you know, when they're firing the rocket for the first time, and then, you know, when they're separating the stages, and then they have to do the circle around the Earth a few times before they fire for a certain amount of time to get it to the moon. And it just astounds me, the work by these thousands of engineers and mathematicians that calculated all this stuff. And it's incredible. So many things could have gone wrong at any time, and everything was just like pinpoint. From the landing, you know, to the, you know, to the surface of the moon, you know, they count down on the screen, you know, how much fuel is left. And it's almost like they had like, I don't know, it's in pounds or whatever. It was down to like pinpoint. Even had a little bit left over, and bam, it landed. And then once they go out, and oh man, there's some incredible shots of, you know, the surface, you know, the panoramic shot. Man, I love this movie. The score by Matt Morton, it's kind of an electronic score. It enhances the movie a lot. And Todd Douglas Miller, the director, put it together. Yeah, there's some footage. If you see this, well, you won't be able to see it anymore on big screen because it was only out for a week. And I don't think it will be as effective as at home. I saw it on IMAX, so the sound and the image is incredible. Yeah, I love that movie. It was amazing.
Well, I saw a movie also that had something to do with space and space travel, but I don't think it was nearly as good and meticulous as the one you saw. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into Captain Marvel talk now. Let me do some prefacing here and some setup, because I know that some people had already had some pre-baked ideas before they saw this movie on both sides. There's one side that was getting upset and thinks that it's against and it's a social justice warrior flick, and then there's the other side that says no, it's not. It's just another Marvel movie that happens to have a woman in the lead. So when I went in, what I wanted to do is I watched nobody's review because I didn't want to be influenced by anybody. I just wanted to sit down and watch a movie. So as film fulfillment folks here, I care about the storytelling. I don't care about how people are going to politically play the political identity politics game before and after the movie. I want to see the movie on its own merit. So this is what I'll say about Captain Marvel. I went into this movie. I actually like Captain Marvel, have read some of her comics. She's a very tough play. I mean, it's hard to do her well. Any superhero that's super powerful like she is, like Superman, you are going to struggle to show her on a screen because, well, when you're all powerful like that, it's hard to see the humanity of the person. And so this film relies a lot on a lot of flashbacks. Now, this is going to be non-spoilers, so I don't want to, since it just came out, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But I'll just say, with the good first, I'll say that, you know, I thought that Ben Mendelsohn did a great job playing his character as one of the Skrulls, and I'll leave it at that. I thought Samuel Jackson was basically Samuel Jackson, as he always is in every movie. So for him, by now, they just
he didn't have any F words in the movie.
Right?
That was not the real Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
He would have been F-wording all
right.
through the movie.
That's right. That voice would have gone up, the eyes would have bugged up a little bit, and he would have said some mother effer or something, right? But in this movie, I would say that he was definitely part of the glue to the humanity part of it, because I didn't quite feel it from Brie Larson. I thought Brie Larson was in a very tough spot because she had to play somebody who had been mind wiped and all this other stuff, which is part of the comics, which you kind of get maybe from the trailer.
And also her instructor or mentor who trained her was telling her, don't use emotions. You know, emotions are bad for you.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a warrior, you can't have emotions. So.
Yeah, Jude Law was trying to calm her down because she's obviously very, very fiery. And so he was saying that when you fight with your hands and with your intellect, not necessarily with your heart, because that'll make you get hasty and make some bad moves. But it's just that some of the parts, though, I just didn't get into the character very well. I found her, and I don't think it's Brie Larson's fault. I think it's the writing. The writing seems like in one half of the movie, which the first half I fell asleep in. I thought that the lead up to it was very slow, and then partially I think that when it did get going and it started to resemble a Marvel movie, then I think it layered very heavily on the fact that it was set in the 90s, and it felt like, look, this is the 90s. See, this happened in the 90s, and maybe that's just how it is.
The music drops. Yeah.
The music drops, and I would say that some of the music cut into it. I guess I'm sliding into some of the bad, if you will. Some of the choices for the song cuts. It was trying to do a version of Guardians of the Galaxy, but I don't think the song choices here hit. No. Because it was very obvious that they were saying, hey, 90s woman song on everything. So at some point, when you try to be too on the nose with something and then we're aware of what you're doing, that kind of takes a little bit back, even if the intention is noble.
So the whole score was Chumbawamba, basically. No. Now I'm definitely not seeing it.
It's called Marvel Fun's Courtney Love.
So she got knocked down, but she got back up again. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. She got knocked down.
Yeah, why didn't they use that song?
Yeah, and so I think that with that, it made this movie a difficult movie to watch, although it was trying to be super important in that this was the first Marvel-led movie that was led by a female, which deserves its own merit
in the MCU.
In the MCU,
there was Elektra.
Well, of course, and there was Supergirl, and there was Catwoman, if you will, and so there were those before, but on this level with MCU. This was touted as supposedly being the first of this one because DC beat them actually to the table with Wonder Woman, right? And I think Wonder Woman was a much better film because this is what's going to happen. You're going to say, well, which film was better, Wonder Woman or Captain Marvel? That's easily Wonder Woman. Which one was better, Alita, Battle Angel, or Captain Marvel? It would be Alita, Battle Angel, easily, hands down. Now, that's not to say don't go see this movie. Just kind of set your expectations on stun, if you will, if I use Star Trek.
So does it build your expectations towards going to see Avengers Endgame at the end?
I think it confuses it because I think the way Infinity War set you up for Endgame was the best. And I think in here there was an after-credit scene. I won't share them. I don't know that you have to see this movie in order to understand Endgame. I think just seeing Infinity War, you will understand Endgame. I think what they did do is another misstep is I think some of the retconning they did with some of the artifacts that were in this. Actually, if you go back and watch Captain America: First Avenger, you're going to find some non-continuity. If you go back and watch the first Thor film, you're going to go, wait a minute, but I thought... So there's some things that they did here that I felt like they didn't have to do that now makes you have to go... If this was in the 90s, but Captain America was the first Avenger, and this article appeared in his film, but then... Yeah, so I think it's going to make you ask more questions, and not in a good way than it is. And I think you'll just get to a place where you just go, I got tired head. At least I got to see a powerful female,
Yep.
And I think that's it. I wished I could say more. I really wanted to go in here because Captain Marvel is one that I do like in terms of superheroes in the Marvel universe. But I can't say that I will be talking about this movie a week from now.
Yeah. I mean, for me, most of these Marvel movies, they're pretty forgettable for me. I understand people love them. I mean, they definitely click with people. They make it, each one box office is huge all the time. They're just not really my cup of tea. I thought some of the good things in the movie were, like you said, Ben Mendelsohn's role. I thought he was the best thing in the movie, his character. Some of the things, the plotting wise, I didn't get. The CGI or I guess de-aging of Samuel Jackson was amazing. I mean,
that was good.
You couldn't tell. Now Coulson looked horrible.
Yeah,
he looked terrible.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe they used up all the budget on Samuel Jackson. Whatever they had left over, they did it on Coulson. Mm-hmm. The other thing was the movie was so dark. I guess maybe they didn't budget enough for lighting. The whole beginning of the movie, and maybe that's what put you to sleep. Is it was so dark,
and I can't imagine Zack Snyder filters on a budget.
And I can't imagine watching this in 3D because then you put in your dark 3D glasses on, it's probably even darker. So, and then at the end there was this big fight scene that was in the dark again. It's like, what is going on here? Light the thing, I want to see what's going on. Maybe they did it to hide the effects. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I would agree with that. That was
it was horrible.
And this is like trying to like this movie because I am a Marvel fan. I mean,
It'd be great for little girls. I'm sure little girls will love it.
Yeah. Well, I think
Powering, I guess.
Don't they have Frozen and all that other stuff? But no, I'm just kidding. But I know that they needed to see this. They
literally had a little girl in there, and her reacting to Captain Marvel probably like any little girl would.
Yeah.
It's kind of cute.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of The Last Jedi where they have the broom kid at the end. And it's like, and that's what I felt like here. Like, you're great, Captain Marvel. I want to be just like you. It's like it started to fall into that trope of the little kid looking up to the hero, right? And I see why they do it, and they should do it. But it was, I think in some of these cases here, it's not that the choice was a bad thing. it was probably the execution. Like, I would have believed it more if you'd have kind of helped set the stage a little bit more, why I should care about these characters and their relationship. I think flashbacks don't do enough. Just flashing back to something doesn't do enough to say, this is why this person cares so much about this person. Like in Superman, we get to see a lot about his childhood, and yeah, they flash back, but I felt that those were good flashbacks because they didn't flash back like in a quick second. Here's a quick second, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. When it flashed back in Superman, the Man of Steel, you got to see segments of his life and understood, like when his superhearing was kicking in, everything was.
They were all emotional
Yes.
to me, and then you really felt for Superman or Clark,
Yeah,
as he was,
and his dad, when his dad dies and does the ultimate sacrifice to go out, you felt how he felt about that. Oh, okay.
Oh,
so
Sorry, I'm
Kevin
gonna
Costner.
grab my teeth on that one, just because I hate Kevin Costner.
his favorite actor.
Yeah, his favorite actor,
I
Kevin
hate
Costner, right? But I mean, I felt that, and I liked how they went back to say, "Oh, by the way, this guy, Superman, this is kind of who he was as a kid. This is how he was as a teenager." And here, I think it would have benefited more from that. But I understand they were trying to set up this whole Skrull and Kree thing, but again, if you're not a comic book fan, and even if you are, you're probably upset because this is not how the Kree and the Skrulls were written in the comics.
Yeah,
but
I had no idea.
If you don't know any of that stuff, you watch this film and you're going, okay, stuff's happening. I know it's supposed to have some importance. I'll just watch the people. So I don't know that it was the best setup in terms of all the Marvel movies. And I would say that if you had to look at Black Panther in this one, I would take Black Panther all day because that world is set up a lot better. You understand the motivations of every character a lot better. It wasn't sandwiched. And not that, you should compare the two, but I feel like people will do that because Black Panther's, first African-American movie in this sense being with this kind of budget with the MCU, with an all-black cast and all that stuff, which knocks out Blade. Blade wasn't an all-black cast, by the way. And neither was Spawn, okay, and neither was Blank Man and Steel. So, again, for those who keep going back to Blade, I know about Blade.
No love
But
for
it
the
still
Meteor
was
Man?
not.
Oh, that makes me
It
sad.
still was not on the
That
level
makes
that
me
Black Panther was. So you're going to see those comparisons, but I will say to everyone watching, without even flinching, Wonder Woman's way better, and so is Alita: Battle Angel. So that's just kind of
I
how
agree.
that rolled. See,
100%.
we're in agreement with that. So while we're talking about that, you did see another one. Let's throw it in there. You did see another one, and you did see The Kid. And since that's one of our picks of the week, kind of give us your first impressions on that, Carlos.
The Kid, a Western, like you said, Vincent D'Onofrio directed. I guess he made friends with Chris Pratt and Ethan Hawke while they were shooting
Magnificent Seven, yeah.
Hey, guys, I've got this script. I want to see if you guys want to be in it. Oh, yeah, we love... I read an interview where Ethan Hawke, and man, he said he loved being in a Western, riding the horses, shooting the guns. Mm-hmm. He wanted to do this cool stunt and this. So, yeah, I could see that. This is another take on Billy the Kid. It's a unique take because it's not really from the point of view of Billy the Kid. There is a kid in it, and that's the title, The Kid. It's him. Him and his sister. Mm-hmm. And the basic story is his father was a drunk. He was beating his wife to death, not in front of the kids because the kids were in another room. They overhear it, of course, and of course they try to stop it. Ends up killing. This is really not a spoiler, but kill the father, and then they're on the run. They have to take off, and Chris Pratt is the brother of who's their uncle, who he stabs him in the face before they run away. Then they run into the Billy the Kid gang. And then Pat Garrett comes along and captures Billy. Mm-hmm. And so there's this interaction between the kid and Billy the Kid. And, of course, the kid is infatuated with Billy because he's read about, the legends and, they're mm-hmm. going to hang you. And, mm-hmm. Billy the Kid is known for always escaping. And, he was kind of a Robin Hood type figure for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But they actually show Billy as kind of a jerk. He said, you promised to help the kid at one point. The Chris Pratt, who plays a man, he's impressive as this bad guy. He's
so Star-Lord is a bad guy.
Foul-mouthed, character you ever saw. And, it gets pretty rough, it's pretty violent. Mm-hmm. It's decent. I mean, Vincent D'Onofrio did a pretty good job directing. As most Westerns, there are always these amazing, vista shots, mm-hmm. the mountains and, mm-hmm. Sunsets and clouds going over. He breaks up scenes with these amazing shots. Mm-hmm. But other than that, yeah, I'd watch it again. Dane DeHaan, he plays the charming, Billy the Kid, and how he kind of taunting the lawman and things like that.
Is he kind of like Russell Crowe in 3:10 to Yuma?
No, he's not like that.
Not quite as good as that.
Russell Crowe had that kind of, silent, very quiet. He only speaks when he has something to say. But yeah, he has kind of a snake-like charm, talking to women. He knows how to. No, Billy is more kind of outrageous and flamboyant almost. Not. So yeah, you can see how people were just like, "Oh, Billy the Kid," So there's some interesting little twists. Now I don't know if the story was true with the kid and stuff. Now Ethan Hawke as Pat Garrett, and they actually this time make Pat Garrett almost the hero of the movie.
Interesting.
Pat Garrett was always looked at, the guy who murdered Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
In the movie, they make it look like when they were younger, they were friends. And you see this age on Ethan Hawke's face, that of his past and the guilt he has of people he's murdered in the past, and he talks to the kid about this. He says, it's one, how if you kill a person, it changes you, and you can either take one path or another. I see good in you.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's kind of it's an interesting performance by him.
That reminds me of Gran Torino, that scene when Clint Eastwood is telling that guy that wants to get back for what they did at shooting up his house and all that stuff. And I remember that where he's telling him, killing somebody isn't a great thing, kid. And when you said that, that's the first thing I went through was Gran Torino.
Oh yeah, and even in Unforgiven, when they take on the young kid who's practically blind, it's a hell of a thing killing a man.
It also sounds like it's kind of got a Night of the Hunter vibe in it.
Which one, the kid?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Except it mostly takes place all during the day. Except the night scene at the end, of course, again, this is not a spoiler. Pat Garrett kills Billy the Kid. And it takes place at night.
Well, I mean the kid's uncle, chasing down the kid, etc.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, it's a movie that you can go see. So I'm actually going to go see it because I do like Westerns. I think one way to help balance out this superhero fatigue that I'm starting to feel because when you have so many superhero movies coming out a year, 6 or 7, it'd be like having 6 or 7 Bond movies coming out a year, James Bond movies. Eventually you'd get tired of James Bond. And so while these guys wear different uniforms, the story is basically the same. The bad guy shows up out of space, and the bad guy's always an alien or some sort of technology.
Over-the-top action.
Yeah, over-the-top action. Some sort of blue glowy thing is in every one of these movies, or it's being shot out of the sky, or there's always a blue glowy thing. So it's starting to get that way. So I need movies like this that are completely separate. I think Westerns, for that very reason, could come back if you want to tell some other different stories, because I think, to your point, the vistas that you show, that's a character within itself whenever you do these movies, because it shows how hard the conditions were that these people were living in, and which explains their hardness and their directness. Like, there's not a lot of fluff in those movies. You can't really write a lot of fluff in a Western because it's pretty much you either stole some cattle, stole some land, a train was coming through or something like that. But you want to find out, though, how do they resolve it, and who's the person that can help the people that maybe aren't very good with a gun? Because, when all the outlaws have guns and they're all good with them, who protects the people who's not an outlaw? And the sheriff usually isn't as good as the outlaw. And
you also got the success of Battle of Buster Scruggs and the fact that was 3 or 4 different types of Westerns, and all of them worked.
Yeah. So I think we can.
Hostiles is another great recent Western that I just love this movie, and I wish it would have gotten more recognition. But, for one reason or another, I guess it wasn't promoted enough, or people just don't go see Westerns anymore.
Yeah, and I think because they don't make them, and I think I think what's going to happen, the superhero juggernaut that is, whatever comes up must come down on some level. So it's like, I think any movie that's not a superhero movie that's more original will probably have a chance to gain some clout, just because people will have that fatigue. Anything that's overdone.
Or can you go see the Marvel movie in the theater, but go see the Western on Netflix?
Yeah, that's another possibility.
Because the Western can be a more intimate scene. Even though you've got the grand vistas and things like that, you still have a much more intimate story, which might lend itself better to a living room rather than a grand theater with giant sound.
Yeah. Well, if you capture that, goes down to the sound part of movies, and if you really do a good job at making sure you get those ricochets and make sure that you differentiate the bullets, the sound coming from the bad guy's gun and the good guy's gun. I mean, there's things you can do, like what Lucas did with Star Wars, to make sure that the ships sounded differently when they were with the Empire, and they sounded differently. You can do some of those same things in a Western. Like, I just wish we used the 2019 mentality to go back and say, hey, here's the technical parts of what was going on back then that we could tighten up and polish to where you just like that clean sound of the way the bullet comes out of one guy's gun versus the other guy's gun, because he's meticulous about it. The edge he has over another gunslinger is the fact that his is quicker or faster or something, because you're looking for an edge.
You know what movie did that? It was The Quick and the Dead.
Yes.
Raimi. Oh my God, what a great movie.
I actually just watched that a month ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Love that movie.
There's a point, and I think that's what you're seeing is that, and it's going to lead to our next point. Horror movies, the same reason why horror movies are getting better now. If you look at the way they were all made back in the 80s and 90s, kind of silly slasher style.
Low budget.
But then low budget, no name actors in it. And then you do stuff like The Conjuring and all that stuff now, where you really take that technology, put better actors in it, put a little money behind it. And then with Peele telling more interesting stories about it, it's not always just a haunted house. Mm-hmm. You can raise a genre back up, and I think that we'll start to see certain genres that were neglected get raised, because every time you want to do a movie about a good guy, it's going to look like a superhero movie because it has the same elements of a superhero movie, except for he just doesn't have superpowers. So you're going to have to do something to get away from this Clint Eastwood story or this Jason Bourne story, because it's going to look like another superhero film.
Exactly.
What do you think,
Yeah,
Carlos?
exactly. I agree with
So we got to have some variety with all this, some diversity within our diversity. So let's get to one of our favorite segments where we're going to put on our thinking caps here. And this is the MILF segment. So before you go with those dirty minds, I want you to think of this. It's movies I'd like to fix, and in this case, we. And so every now and again, let me set this up. You go to the movie theater, and you've been waiting for a movie for a long time. It's got your favorite director in it. Or doing it behind the scenes. It has your favorite actors and actresses in it. You go see the film, and it was okay. Wasn't bad. You might buy it on DVD, but you're like, if only they would have just done this, they stuck the landing in this one area, this movie could have been awesome. So this is about movies that aren't necessarily that they're bad, because then we'd spend the whole segment just trying to do that. It's just that they were good, but the good could have been helped out by the parts of it that were kind of bad. So here we go in the movie. I've been teasing this. The movie that we're going to attempt to fix here is the movie called Black Klansman. Yes, I said it. So to set the stage in the
Spike Lee joint.
The Spike Lee joint. We're going to talk about this film because, well, first of all, this is a real story of a real guy.
Based on a real story.
It's based
the
on
movie is based on.
The movie's yeah. So the concept itself comes from a real incident. So whenever there's a real incident or a real person, then you would think you'd want to go do all the research into what this person actually stood for, and then from there tell your story. What we got in Black Klansman was something different. So I'll just start with the good. Let's start with the good first, Carlos, with Black Klansman. First of all, you've seen it.
Yes.
The overall impression before we jump in?
My impression is it's not Spike Lee's best movie.
Agreed.
It's entertaining to watch if you don't know the story. Mm-hmm. He films it in a way where it's, you know, it's I don't know, he puts humor in it, and he puts, you know, comical situations, and Spike Lee's got a interesting sense of humor.
Truly.
And especially when it comes to things like this, you know,
Yes.
when you got race and
Mm-hmm.
Ku Klux Klan and
Mm-hmm.
and things like this, and of course he makes the Klan look buffoonish, which
Mm-hmm.
they are. in
Which they
reality,
are, yeah.
Which I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, in some places, it was a little over the top. you
Yeah.
know. And I think we were talking about once, Ron Stallworth's character himself, you know. What was the movie where he kind of compared it to? With the
Yeah, oh yeah, Undercover Brother.
Undercover Brother,
There were some
yes.
scenes.
But yeah, he does some interesting things with it. The ending was a little way over the top, but I understand why he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he puts his little, you know, Spike Lee trademark shots. You know, that I guess that rolling dolly shot where they're going down that hall at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah. Other than that, yeah. I mean, but you know, I wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no need to watch this film again, which is opposite, because I'll watch Green Book again, but because this movie came out at the same time, it was up against Green Book in the Best Picture award, which Best Picture ended up being Green Book, and actually some people got mad about that, and it's interesting. So
Spike Lee was,
and Spike Lee,
I
again,
think he was acting up though.
Yeah, I think
I couldn't take him seriously.
I can't either. When you dress in a purple suit, look like the Purple Man or the Joker or a mix of both, I can't take you that seriously.
The Hamburger.
My good thing,
I still like his quote though.
What's that?
Every time someone driving somebody else, I lose.
Yeah, well, that's kind of.
Driving Miss Daisy. He didn't even get nominated.
Yeah. But so the good. I will assign the good first, so that people don't think that I absolutely hated this movie. So the good part was that was Denzel Washington's son playing the lead character there, and I think he's a great actor. I've been watching him grow through the TV series, and then he's in this movie, and there's another one that he was in that escapes me at the moment. So I thought he was competent in terms of his acting ability. He has
screen presence.
He does have screen presence,
like his dad.
I liked Adam Driver in this film as well. Kylo Ren did a great job playing the Jewish cop that was alongside of him, who played the other version of Ron Stallworth. So I thought his acting was definitely noteworthy, and I thought that was good as well. And Buscemi's funny; he was good. I liked Buscemi. I liked the idea that they wanted to do this story, because when you look at the concept of it, a black guy that actually really got into the Klan, that's for real. That actually happened. He was able to call and talk to David Duke over the phone and get into the Klan just based off of his speaking and the way he said his R's and auras and didn't say his auras and stuff. So I think that's fascinating. To me, that would be the only thing that'd be funny about this, because the rest of the time, what the cops are trying to do is they're trying to figure out the movements of all these political movements that are going on, especially the black political movements, because we know that they were already tapping Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X's phones and things like that. So in a way, let's now jump into the bad. What I didn't appreciate about this movie is I don't really think it should be a comedy at all, because the subject matter itself is not anything like that to be toyed with. This is in the middle of all of this civil rights and the kind of right after the civil rights, and still were a lot of problems. And this story, Ron Stallworth's story, is an incredible story. It should have been told to me like the way you did Selma, or like the way you would do Mississippi Burning. I mean, what do you think?
What a film. If they would have taken it seriously and done it, even almost documentary style, but make it, a drama. And he can throw some things in there that, for dramatic purposes, take liberties with the real story.
Yep.
But this one, he took way too many liberties.
Yeah.
And Boots Riley had an interesting, screed on this, where he tweeted about 3 things in a row. The real story of Ron Washington, which is really incredible. I would have loved to have seen that real story done. And hopefully maybe somebody will do it eventually.
Yeah.
But, doing it like this and almost kind of a parody type movie, or it just didn't work for me.
Yeah, the tone was really ridiculous, because I thought the pace was actually surprisingly pretty good, but the tone though was off. You didn't know what was supposed to be considered funny. And by the way, every time we do a movie in the 60s and 70s, or 70s for sure, does everything have to remind us of Undercover Brother? Does it always have to be about the brother with the huge fro, and he's always primping over his fro and all that stuff?
Bell-bottom pants and
that'd be like,
and everything.
Right? That's like having in every rap song there has to be some scene of them and the police getting into it or something. By now, if every time we think of the 70s, it always has to be defined by how big the afro is and how much they obsess over it throughout the movie. I'm thinking that's starting to become a trope. And so when I was watching the movie, that kind of took me out of it right there, because the first thing I thought of, instead of Ron Stallworth, a guy who was a black man who infiltrated and got into the KKK, the last thing I want to think about is Undercover Brother. What is his name? Eddie Griffin playing Undercover Brother. Yeah, that's it too. They spent this whole thing, and again, like with Captain Marvel, trying to make you believe, look, it's the 90s, it's the 90s. See, video games, arcades,
Blockbuster.
Right? And then Blockbuster, Radio Shack. Well, here it's disco music, bell bottoms, and the power fist, and the and it's like, okay, tone some of that down a little bit so that we can actually see how would a black man who becomes the first black cop in Colorado, was it Colorado Springs or something like that? Yeah. What would that have been like? That I don't think that'd be funny and disco-y. I mean, what would it be like to be the first black cop in a whole department of nothing but mostly white guys? And would they all be his friends?
I don't think they would have accepted him right away for sure. They would have been suspicious of him. Like, what are you doing here? You know, it's like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that was a miss on Spike. Now, for all those people who are getting mad at Green Book and trying to say, oh, well, that, you know, Don Shirley never ate black chicken before, whatever. But it's like, okay, so you have this where all of a sudden white cops are just happy to be working with Ron Stallworth, except for just that one. There's always one bad cop, but the rest of the cops are all behind him. And he's the first. It should be more like Jackie Robinson in 42.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how it should be
That
the first
should be.
time, right? And that's what he should have channeled. Maybe he should have watched that first. But I didn't buy that the cops were just all of a sudden. There was just one bad guy, and then all the rest were just willing to help Ron Stallworth. You know, I just didn't. I didn't think that was accurate enough. And so you talk about Boots Riley. He mentioned something too. Boots Riley showed segments of where, even at that time, they showed how the police officers he's working with, how they knew of different extremist groups getting together and chose deliberately not to help police them. And some people died. I think 6 people died in one deal where there was a big clash. And it was like the police knew that the Klan was coming and that this activist group was coming by, but they chose not to police it, not to be around it.
Yeah.
And it's
what happened was, and this is kind of, let me just kind of paraphrase this, it says the real Ron Stallworth infiltrated a black radical organization for 3 years, not for one event like the movie showed. And it was kind of part of this FBI counterintelligence program, CounterPro. And the police infiltrators of the radical organizations worked to try to disrupt the organizations through things like instigating infighting and acting crazy to make the organizations look bad, getting physical altercations happening and setting them up to be murdered by the police or others. And Ron Stallworth was part of that CounterPro. And CounterPro's objectives were to destroy radical organizations, especially black radical organizations. And they used the Klan to do that. They didn't try to disrupt the Klan itself.
Right.
They used it to disrupt the Black Panthers and other groups like that.
Yeah.
So there was no bombing, like the movie shows up. There was no incident where somebody was like his wife was going to go park a VW in front of somebody's house and blow it up. That never happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's again, it's when you take something serious like this, Spike, you got to know. People are going to go fact check this stuff, and they're going to go look at it. And if you're going to tell a different story, make it an interesting one. In this case, you almost make it sound like you're tied in with the police in a way, with the favorable light that you showed them in. And we all know this wasn't very long after.
Not a lot of people know it. We should know it.
Yeah, like what was it? Kwame that they had in the film, who was really Stokely Carmichael, who we know what happened to what the Chicago police did to some of these guys when they thought they were Black Panthers and they thought they were a big threat because they were speaking out against their right. Patrick Henry can say, "Give me liberty or give me death," and that's okay. But if they say something like, "No, we won't let you come in our neighborhoods and beat us and kill us," that's a problem.
They don't want to be oppressed.
I don't want to be oppressed.
They just want to be normal citizens, just
right?
have rights just like everybody else. We're not animals. It's like Jesus.
Yeah. And knowing the relationship between African Americans, minorities in general, with the police, to put this film out showing that as if already they were that quickly on board, with the African American community back then, I think that was a wasted opportunity to really say, hey, let's just do like Selma and show what happened in Selma. Selma was great. If you haven't seen that movie, go watch that movie. Ava DuVernay was the director. She also did a documentary on Netflix called 13th.
Yes.
About the 13th Amendment. If you don't know that, you need to watch
Powerful.
it. So that's the thing I think is missing here. I think Black Klansman is missing its teeth, and then to get teeth, it does what you alluded to at the end. It turns into a propaganda piece at the very end by showing you modern day cuts.
Boots Riley.
Yeah.
His thing, he goes, "Oh hell no!" when he saw that.
Yeah. I mean, because the movie is making you think, okay, we're going to go back to the past. We're going to look at this time in the 70s, right? What happened here, the 60s, early 70s, and then all of a sudden, at the end of the movie, for all of his, I'm going to try to make this movie funny and undercover brotherish with the Afro pick and all that stuff. I'm then going to give you what I really wanted to give you in the first place, which is this gut punch about Charlottesville.
And that when I watched it in the theater, that scene was actually affected because there wasn't a sound in the movie. I mean, the audience was just like silent. And yeah, they were just like enraptured at that. It was like, it's hard to watch that. You know, it's devastating what happened there.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, and I think that's it. I mean, when we look at this movie, I think this movie was doing some great things. Like the fact that I thought the casting was great. Once again, I got to give you my positives. The casting was great, but I thought with that kind of a cast assembled, Steve Buscemi, Adam Driver, Denzel Washington's son,
taking it a little more seriously.
Topher Grace,
so good.
What's that?
Topher Grace.
Yes, Topher Grace as David Duke. That was awesome, by the way. I think I enjoyed every scene where he was just, even though it was over the top. I agree with you, Carlos. It was over the top.
He was playing a caricature of David Duke. Well, who knows? David Duke's probably really like a moron like that.
Yeah,
he is.
He totally is.
He really is.
So I would say then, if we were just to fix the film, now that we've talked about some of the problems, I think some of the fixes are pretty simple. I think with the tone, let's land on a tone. Let's don't try to put a lot of humor into something that's really not humorous. So I think we'd fix that tone. I would give more credence to what actually really happened and put more of that in the film, more so than just the bombing pieces and all that other stuff and just some white Americans who are just mad and thinking they're losing their country and all that stuff. I think I'd have shown more of, why do these people feel this way? Why did they go there? Right? Because all of us can hate, right. But why would they associate that and believe that against a whole group of people?
What's behind it?
Yeah, and I think if he'd have done that, then I would have said, yeah, Black Klansman should have won, for Best Picture had he had done that. But as it were, I would say that Green Book actually did it humor right in a film that you wouldn't expect to have it with what was going on. And that's because it was character driven. And I think
it had a tone. Like you said, it landed a tone and it kept with it. And yeah, it went from sometimes comedy to drama, but that's what a lot of movies do like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think the great films are that. Wouldn't you say? The great films know that line. There's always this line between what's funny, because at any moment can be funny, really, if you look at it. I think of Han Solo when they're in the trash compactor and says, well, I know one thing for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner, right? Now that makes sense and that's funny, but then there's a line where you push it way too much and you're just trying to be funny in every moment, and that, the Afro pats and checking yourself and all that stuff to make sure you're 70s enough.
Look at any Alfred Hitchcock film. These movies are some of the most intense, tension building movies you ever seen, but he always has a little bit of humor in them. Yeah. Even Psycho, there's humor in that movie. The birds, everything. Every one of his movies has some kind of little thing he throws in there. Just kind of, maybe it's just to relieve the tension sometimes, and that's what sometimes they do with these movies. You can't just build and have this intense movie.
Yeah,
90 minutes of that. You're like, by the end of the movie, you're like, wrung out. You got to break that tension sometimes.
That's true, and Ridley Scott
did it. You got to
be
subtle about it.
You do have to be subtle about it, and that's that line that you have to be careful of crossing over. Ridley Scott did this in Gladiator. Okay, there's a scene. Everybody remembers this scene, and again, it's perfect because the movie has to be played for what it is. You feel for this gladiator because everything's been taken from him, and he's the most loyal, integrity-filled person. Yet the king does all this crazy stuff, and you want to see him get his comeuppance by, or the prince get his comeuppance by this gladiator. But see, here's how it's done right. The humor done in this film, there's two spots I can think of, and one is when Jaimin Hansu comes up and he's looking at me, sees he's got these little wooden figures. And he says, what are those? And he goes, oh, these remind me of my family. He says, my son, when I see it, I think of, hey, keep your heels down when you're riding the horse. And my wife, well, never mind when I tell her that. When I tell her, right? And that was funny because you weren't expecting it from the stoic gladiator, and that's why it worked. And then the second time it happened is when they're somewhere, they've been captured again, and there's some food that they have to eat, but they're all trying to protect the gladiator because they were all rallying around him. So the strongest, biggest guy decides he'll eat and test the food to see if it's poison for him. So he starts to eat the food, and then he acts like he's choking and dying real quick. And the gladiator goes, oh, and then he goes, just kidding. But 2 times, just 2 pitiful scenes. If you put it in the right place, you don't need 15 scenes of humor to try to dilute the tension. You just need them in those spots, and then make it make sense to what's going on around it. And I think you do well. Marvel, please pay attention to this. This will help you with some of those jokes that fall flat because you're trying to be so meta all the time.
Oh my God, yeah.
So I think if you can ride that line well, if you're going to do these kind of films, then you'll be okay. But if the idea is to be a punch, like Schindler's List, then you need to keep the tension and not do that. Because for him to say, I'm going to use all this humor and then gut punch you with the Charlottesville, film footage, I mean, you just did a roller coaster thing on people, and now they're shocked, and that's why they're quiet. They don't know what to say because they were watching this movie, enjoying it, laughing, and then boom, you hit them with this.
Maybe that's why he did it.
Yeah, and I think that's why he did it. But it's like
it doesn't quite work.
No,
I don't know. Maybe in some other context, in a different story, maybe it will work. But this one, no.
Yeah. Well, that's Black Klansman, ladies and gentlemen, and that if I had a chance to fix a movie that I would think could be great, that it would be sitting on my Blu-ray shelf, it would be that I would fix those certain things about it, and then I'd want to watch it several times. As it is, I don't know that to your point, Carlos, I don't know that I really need to see that film again, so I'm probably not going to be into it. But I will watch Green Book, and as soon as it comes out, I'll watch it again. How about that? See? So next episode, let me talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to head on out here. But on the 24th, we're going to send Carlos out to Pasadena, California. He's going to go to this Zack Snyder event.
Yeah, Zach, you're going to love this.
Yeah, Zach's going to love it. In fact, he's seen Zach.
3 director's cuts. Friday night will be Dawn of the Dead director's cut. Saturday will be Watchmen director's cut, and Sunday will be Batman versus Superman director's cut.
Look, don't get me wrong, I like the Zack Snyder early films. I loved Watchmen. I'll watch that full director's cut, full 5-hour sit and watch everything beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
But what I hate is his DC films.
Gotcha. So now we have agreement on fulfillment. How about that? There we go. Yeah. So, Carlos, where can they find you on the internets, social media?
I'm on Twitter, at Film Samurai. I'm on Facebook. I don't use it very much, but feel free to follow or friend me or whatever it is these days. I'm on Instagram. It's a private account, but if you want, just request, I'll add you.
Absolutely, I love it. And also the Vegabomber myself, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter under that same name, Vegabomber. I'm also on Instagram, and you can find me on a YouTube channel. Go to the YouTube channel if you want to watch something in between these shows. Since these shows are taped just twice a month, then you can see all my film reviews and other pieces that I think about media up and until that time. So Vegabomber YouTube channel, and go ahead and subscribe and like that, and tell all your friends. If you like what we're doing here, if you really like diving into movies this deeply, then tell everybody so we can get everything back together to where we can then start doing things for you guys. There'll be some shirt giveaways or some things we can give away, but we got to get the numbers up, and then once we do that, we'll start giving a lot back. Because if too much that is given with much responsibility, right? We would need to be better with that, and that was Sam Raby who taught us that one. So until then, Zack Snyder, he's the man running behind the boards, and we're out of here.
Sayonara.
Sayonara.
This is DallasOnAir.com.